随着中国经济发展，中国企业走入国际市场呢是大势所趋。接下来，环球财经纽约的记者庞哲将会带大家一起来听听美国的专家对于中国企业如何成功走出去给出的建议。庞哲，专家们都给出了哪些建议呢？
是的，富江，随着中国经济的增强，进入国际市场就成为必然。但是中国公司在国际市场上的发展不但并不顺利，而且还引发了很多官司。本周经济观察，我们就来听听美国业界专家就如何扭转这种局面所提出的一些观点。不过首先我们来回顾欧美股市过去这个周的表现状况。美股周一受经济数据支持，走势反复，小升作收。周二公司盈利消息支持大势，道指带领大盘全面收高。周三联储维持低息政策，市场审慎乐观。周四股市受经济数据欠佳拖累，走低，三大指数下跌作收。美股周五受到全面经济数据向好的支持，三大指数大幅跳升，道指重升14000点关口。欧洲三大股指周一表现平淡，涨跌互见作收。周二股市变动不大，三大股指收盘几乎平盘。周三股市在美国经济数据以及个股欠佳多重打压之下，欧股最终小幅收低。多方不佳经济数据打压之下，欧股周四连续第二天作收，欧股周五止跌转涨。美国利好经济数据支撑欧股三大股指上升作收。发展新的市场，树立新的国际品牌和形象，都是中国公司进入国际市场的主要动力。达到这个目的方式很多，中国公司到海外挂牌上市，或者是收购合并美国的公司，都是这两条途径呢，进展的都是相当不顺利。那么上周美国纽约 Fordham 法学院的专家举办的相关论坛当中，专家们就对中国公司进入国际市场的优势、面临的挑战和如何解决这些难题进行了分析，并且提出了一些建议。今天呢，我们就首先为大家介绍的是优势与挑战。
Chinese companies are very anxious to come to the US at the moment for some obvious reasons. Number one, Chinese companies have on the whole not succeeded in building global brands themselves, and Chinese companies want to take advantage of one of the things that the US is still very good at, which is building branded companies. So one reason for Chinese companies to come here is obviously for that reason. Also, the US market, although we've had very slow or negligible economic growth in the last few years here, the US market is still perceived as being a very attractive one to many Chinese companies. And then the third point is obviously Chinese companies are looking for technology from the US.
In general, the Chinese government is encouraging the companies to come out as part of the 12 5-year plan. So there are different incentives for these Chinese companies to come out, and there are certain advantages on part of these Chinese companies when they come out here to the United States to make acquisitions. One obvious advantage is that they have a lot of cash,
and frankly, Chinese companies have made very little progress in the US, I would say, to date. And funnily enough, it's not quite legal barriers that have stopped them, I don't think. I think the cultural barriers and the political barriers have been so high to date. Chinese companies haven't on the whole even had the chance to test the legal environment here. So of $60 billion of foreign investment by Chinese companies, by my estimates, about $10 billion of that went into the US last year, which is maybe 15% of the total. It's a drop in the ocean.
There was a total of 2 Chinese IPOs that took place last year. That compares to 16 Chinese IPOs in 2011, and in the heyday of Chinese IPOs, 43 IPOs in 2010. And so you have a dramatic, obviously, decrease. And the pipeline of Chinese companies looking to go public in the United States is not at all robust.
My firm, BDA, has about 7 or 8 mandates from Chinese companies who want to penetrate the US, and they're simply failing to get here at the moment. The first barrier is a language barrier. We Westerners struggle to understand nuances in Chinese language where a translation isn't obvious at the first run through. clearly the same applies the other way around as well. So for Chinese companies trying to tackle the US, it's very, very difficult practically for them to participate in an auction process for a company being sold in the US. And I think there are just culture barriers too. Just as the legal environment in China is relatively nascent, business law is relatively new, still being formed in many cases, bankruptcy law and so on, just not very well formed, not very well tested in China today.
Our friend from Phoenix made the comment about Deloitte and now the SEC action against 5 other accounting firms, the other majors, BDO included as well. And this is a real political issue and one that is going to have to be at some level resolved politically.
以上就是本周的环球财经，下周呢，我们介绍如何解决这些问题。富江。